AI is advancing faster than ever, but is it too late? Global debt is soaring, political unrest is rising, and the balance of power is shifting fast. Ray Dalio's five forces reveal a future that could either explode or evolve. Will technology save us or speed up the crash?
What if all this incredible AI and tech stuff we are seeing is actually happening at the worst possible time? Like, what if all this amazing progress is happening during a time of huge economic and geopolitical problems? Well, we are diving deep into the thoughts of Ray Dalio today. Dalio is a veteran global macro investor who thinks there are five powerful forces shaping our world, and we are going to figure out what they are and how they might impact you. So, can the rise of AI actually overcome all these problems? Or are we all headed for a global reset?
Yeah, it is kind of wild to think about, right? We all get caught up in all the hype around technology, but Dalio really makes you step back and look at the big picture. It's like he's saying, hey, wait a minute, there are these massive things happening that could totally change everything.
Okay, so let's break it down. What's the first force we need to understand?
Well, the first one is something we all hear about all the time. It's the debt money economic cycle, But Dalio explains it in a way that really makes you think. He's not just talking about like the normal ups and downs of the market. He's talking about these long-term cycles where debt just keeps rising and rising compared to how much money we are making. You can almost think of it like a pressure cooker, building up steam.
So it's not just about, like, is the market up today or down today?
Yeah.
But this bigger pattern of more and more debt that could eventually, I don't know, explode.
Exactly. And what's crazy is that Dalio connects this economic cycle to social and political problems. It's his second force, the internal order disorder cycle. He's basically saying that when all this debt finally pops, it's going to trigger huge problems in society and politics, like wealth gaps and social unrest and political polarization. All of that gets so much worse when the economy is doing badly.
So it's not just about, like, the numbers and charts, but how those numbers affect people's lives,
Yep.
their sense of stability, and if they can even trust the government.
Right. And as all that pressure builds up inside a country, it can start to spill over into the rest of the world. And that's where Dalio's third force comes in, the international world order cycle. Think about it throughout history. Powerful countries have risen and fallen, and that always leads to changes in global alliances and, who has the power.
Yeah, like after World War II, the U.S. became like a superpower, and they basically set up this world order that has been in place for decades. But now, with China and other countries rising, that order is being challenged more than we have seen in a long time.
Quick ask. Almost 95% of you watch our videos but still aren't subscribed. Please click subscribe. It really helps us grow. And if you're not loving our content, you can always change your mind. Thanks, and back to it. Dalio isn't saying who's going to win or lose in this global power struggle, but he is saying that these transitions, these times when power shifts, they are always unstable. And all of this is happening at the same time as massive debt and rising tensions inside countries. It's like a recipe for global chaos and conflict.
Wow. Okay. So we've got these three forces all connected: debt cycles, internal problems, and a changing world order. What are the other two forces that we need to think about?
Well, the fourth one is something we are dealing with right now: climate and acts of nature. Dalio says that throughout history, climate change, natural disasters, and pandemics have completely changed civilizations. And we are really starting to see the effects of all of that today.
Yeah, it's hard to ignore it.
Yeah.
Extreme weather, rising sea levels, not enough resources. These aren't just things we might have to deal with in the future. They're happening now to people and economies all over the world.
And Dalio connects climate change back to all the other forces. He says that it can make economic inequality worse, make people more likely to revolt, and even cause wars over resources. So climate change isn't just an environmental problem. It's really tied to all the other forces we've been talking about.
It's like it makes all of those other problems even worse.
Right.
Wow, this is a lot. But I know Dalio also talks about a fifth force, one that's actually, I don't know, positive, in the middle of all this bad stuff.
Yeah. The fifth force is human inventiveness and technology. Dalio really believes in humanity's ability to come up with solutions to problems, even really hard ones. And he sees technology, especially AI, as a powerful force for good.
Hey, want our free AI dope top AI tools that we use? Chat below. It's our live Google Sheets packed with over 100 killer tools: video, music, photos, AI voices, productivity, script writing, YouTube hacks, captions, the works. Always growing. Live Google Sheet. Always free. AI, dope top AI tools that we use. Download and chat below. Back to the show.
So this is where it gets really interesting. Because on the one hand, we have all these potential problems like debt and social unrest and climate change. But then on the other hand, we have all this amazing new technology that might actually be able to help us fix these problems and create a better future. So the big question is, can AI really be powerful enough to overcome all these other problems and lead to a really good future? Or are we in for something much worse?
That's the question Dalio wants all of us to think about. He's not saying he has all the answers, but he wants us to understand these forces, to really think about what they mean, and to make choices that create the future we want.
Okay, so we have talked about these 5 forces, but we need to go deeper, especially into how AI and debt are connected. This is where Dalio's ideas get really interesting.
Definitely. And that's where we will pick up next time. We'll explore why Dalio sees AI as both a potential savior and a potential problem for all the challenges we are facing. It's a paradox that could define the future, and you won't want to miss it.
We just explored these 5 forces shaping the world that Ray Dalio talked about, and it's a lot to think about. But you mentioned that things get even more interesting when we talk about AI and debt, like even a little scary. Why is this connection between AI and debt so important for us to understand?
Well, it's like this weird paradox, right?
Yeah.
AI could really boost how much stuff we make and how much money we have as a society. I mean, think about it. AI could help us discover new drugs way faster, give people personalized education, create super efficient energy systems. AI could change everything. But Dalio says that AI might actually make the debt problem even worse.
Wait, really? How could something that makes us richer create more debt?
It's all about timing and who benefits. Let's say AI takes off in a bunch of industries and starts automating jobs way faster than we expect. All of a sudden, you have a lot of people who can't find work because their skills are outdated. What happens then?
I guess governments would have to step in, right? With things like unemployment benefits, job training programs, maybe even universal basic income. But that stuff costs money. And if governments are already in a ton of debt.
Exactly. It's like trying to put out a fire with gasoline. Trying to fix the problems caused by AI by spending more money could actually make the debt crisis much worse, which could lead to higher taxes, crazy inflation, or even the whole system for borrowing money collapsing.
Okay, yeah, I can see how that could get really bad. Didn't Dalio also compare what's happening now to the late 1990s, though? Like, what's the connection there?
Dalio sees a lot of similarities. Back then, we had this huge tech boom. Everyone was so excited about the internet. But underneath all that excitement, there was a ton of risky lending, the prices of things were way too high, and well, the whole thing blew up in the end. He thinks something similar could happen now with AI.
So you're saying that all this excitement around AI might be blinding us to some really big economic problems. Kind of like eating a ton of candy and then crashing later.
Yeah, you could say that. And there's one thing that Dalio is really worried about. The debt-death spiral. Imagine a government with a ton of debt. Then suddenly, interest rates go up, maybe because investors get nervous or inflation gets out of control. Now that government has to spend way more money just to pay the interest on all the money it borrowed.
So they have less money for other important things, like schools, roads, helping people who need it, which means they have to borrow even more money just to keep things running, which means they go even deeper into debt.
Exactly. And it can happen to companies too. They borrow money to invest in AI, hoping it will help them make more money. But if the economy slows down or those AI investments don't pay off fast enough, they're in trouble, they can't pay their debts, they have to fire people, and the whole cycle gets even worse. It's like a line of dominoes falling over.
This is starting to sound pretty bad. Is there anything we can do to stop this from happening?
That's the million-dollar question. And that's exactly what we'll talk about in the next part of our deep dive. Dalio does have some ideas about what we can do, but they would require countries to work together and politicians to make some really tough decisions.
Okay, I'm both interested and a little scared to hear what those solutions are. Let's take a quick break and then we'll get into those potential solutions and what this all means for you. All right, so we talked about how this combo of rising debt and all these advancements in AI could lead to some really bad stuff. But I know Dalio isn't all doom and gloom. He actually thinks there are some things we can do about it. What does he think we should do to get through all of this?
Well, Dalio doesn't pretend like there's one easy solution. He knows this is a super complicated situation and that anything we do is going to require finding the right balance. One of his big ideas is something he calls responsible deleveraging.
Responsible deleveraging. So
Okay.
not just trying to avoid getting rid of debt altogether,
Yeah,
but actually doing it in a way that doesn't completely wreck the economy.
exactly. He says that when debt gets to a certain point, we have to reduce it. There's no way around it. The key is to do it slowly and strategically. So we bring debt levels down without crashing the whole system.
Okay, I get it. But that sounds really hard. How do we actually do that?
He suggests a few things. First, governments need to get their finances in order. That means cutting spending, raising taxes, or probably a mix of both.
Ugh, yeah, those are not easy choices, especially when people expect the government to provide certain services and help them when they need it.
Yeah, it's tough. But Dalio says it's better to make those tough choices now than to wait until it's too late, and we have a much bigger crisis on our hands. And he also says that we don't have to just cut everything equally. It's about figuring out which services are absolutely necessary, getting rid of waste, and finding ways to do more with less money.
So it's not just about cutting spending just to cut spending. It's about being smarter with how we use government money.
Right. And this is where AI could actually help. AI systems could help governments find places to save money, make things more efficient, and even personalize services so they work better for people.
Well, that's interesting. So AI could actually help us run the government better, which could maybe help with those social and political problems we were talking about.
It could. But Dalio says technology alone isn't enough. Politicians and everyday people need to start thinking differently too. We need to stop focusing so much on the short term and start thinking more about the long term, especially when it comes to how we manage money and invest in the future.
So it's not just about fixing the numbers. It's about changing how we think about debt and responsibility and what the government should be doing in a world that's changing so fast.
Yeah, exactly. And then there's the other side of things. Monetary policy. Central banks play a huge role in managing interest rates and controlling inflation and keeping the whole financial system stable.
But haven't central banks already been doing that? We've had super low interest rates for years. And haven't they already been printing a ton of money? What else can they do?
Dalio thinks central banks need to come up with totally new tools and strategies to deal with this new economic reality. He says they need to work more closely with governments to figure out how to boost the economy without causing too much inflation or adding to the debt problem.
So it's like finding this perfect balance where you can get businesses to invest and hire more people without creating new bubbles or just pushing the debt problem off to the future.
Right. And Dalio admits this is going to require central banks to be more creative and flexible and work together more than they ever have before.
That's a lot to ask. But if we can do it, if we can reduce debt responsibly and use the power of AI in a good way, what kind of future could we create?
This is where Dalio gets really optimistic. He thinks we could create a future where there's more for everyone, the planet is healthier, and people are happier. A future where AI helps us do amazing things, takes over the boring jobs, and gives us more time to do work we enjoy and spend time with people we love. A future where we can finally solve some of humanity's biggest problems like climate change, poverty, and disease.
That sounds amazing. But I know he also thinks there's a chance we could mess it all up. We could use AI for bad things, make inequality even worse, and create a future where there's a lot of social unrest and technology controls everything.
Yeah, that's definitely a possibility. The future isn't set in stone. It's a path we choose, a story we write together. And Dalio's ideas are like a wake-up call. He's challenging us to really think about what's happening and to make choices that create the future we want.
So what does all of this mean for our listeners? What can they do to deal with these forces and create a future that aligns with their values?
Dalio says it all starts with understanding. Understanding how debt works, how all these forces are connected, and the good and bad things about technology. Once you understand all of that, you can start making better decisions about your job, your investments, your whole life.
So it's about learning as much as you can so you can make good choices, instead of just reacting to whatever happens.
Right. And it's about remembering that we are all in this together. The choices we make, both individually and as a society, will decide what the future looks like. So talk about these issues, support the policies you think are right, and use your voice to make the world a better place.
That's a great message to end on. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into Ray Dalio's 5 forces and what they mean for the future. It's been a really interesting and thought-provoking conversation. But I think in the end, it gives us hope that we can create a better future.
If we take a step back and look at the big picture, the most important thing to remember is that the future isn't something that just happens to us.
It's something we create.
And if you want another AI dope deep dive, check this next video and ask yourself, how lucky are we to live in these AI dope times?